I'm Caroline Moderesi-Tirani. You're watching HuffPost Live. Now, Real School Gardens is a non-profit that builds learning green spaces in low-income schools and trains teachers on how to incorporate them into their curriculum. Well, the programme's partners have seen a 12 to 15% increase in standardised test pass rates, as well as an increase in student engagement. Joining me now to discuss the programme's success is the CEO of Real School Gardens, Jeanne McCarty. So, Jeanne, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Caroline.
So tell us a little bit about how Real School Gardens has actually been helping students and teachers in low-income schools.
Sure. Well, the research shows that kids learn best when they learn in hands-on ways and they're engaged, and particularly engaged outdoors. So what we do is we build learning gardens that are outdoor classrooms. So think beyond vegetables. They also have multiple features for teaching and learning. And then we train teachers to use those spaces to improve academic achievement. So we're showing teachers how to take those concepts that they generally teach from books or in the classroom and showing them how to teach those outdoors in a real-world setting.
Yeah, in terms of being able to actually conceptualize this program and then see it implemented, how long did that take you guys?
So it's a 3-year partnership with schools to start. And so in the first year, we work with the school to design the space. And then for the following 2 years, we train teachers. And we're training teachers on site in their garden and with their students. So it's a coaching model that we use. And then after that, our schools stay on board with us. We have an ongoing evergreen support program. So some of our schools that we installed and partnered with in 2003 are still active with us today.
And how are the schools actually funded?
So we partner with corporations to build the learning gardens, and that's a key part of our funding. Our schools and our school districts also invest in our program, and then we do just general fundraising beyond that.
And in terms of the improvements that you've been able to witness, and we're seeing some of the great photos here of the kids really getting involved, looking like they're having a lot of fun, what kind of improvements have you seen?
So for students, we've seen students just become much more academically engaged. So some of the students that might have a hard time focusing inside the classroom come outside and they come to life. So we've seen increased student engagement. We've also seen increases long term in test scores, so 12 to 15%, particularly in science, where the learning garden is just a great place to teach. But there's so many great examples of benefits to kids. But what we often don't hear as much about are the benefits to teachers. So we've also seen our teachers become much more engaged in teaching. We've seen their job satisfaction throughout the 3-year partnership that we launched double. And, the reason that happens is I think that teachers are just so excited when they see their kids actually engaged in learning and doing better.
Yeah, and how are parents responding to these gardens?
So in a lot of ways, parents are involved from the very beginning. So we get them involved in the design process. We get them involved in building the gardens. And then they continue to help sustain the gardens over the long term. And so oftentimes you see parents who may not otherwise be engaged in the school have some sort of talents and expertise to bring to bear. So, I was in a school the other day, and one of the students showed me some of the stonework, and he said, my father helped do that. So there's many ways that parents can get involved.
I think a lot of people might be interested specifically about this test score correlation. Obviously, a boost in science you can kind of maybe understand because they were able to see certain things happen in real time when they're in the gardens, they actually can kind of put into practice what maybe is in their textbooks. What about in other areas of school, though? Why do you think that there has been a jump in test scores in other subjects?
So in math particularly, a lot of the early concepts of math you learn by manipulating things, counting, measuring, but a lot of that takes place in the classroom. In the learning garden, we go outdoors and we show teachers how to teach math with a purpose. So, for example, they're looking at volume, area, perimeter when they're determining how much fertilizer to put in a vegetable bed. They're also measuring vegetable growth. They're charting and graphing over time. So there's this real-world purpose behind the learning, and I think that's what gets kids most engaged. And then another example, too, in language arts, descriptive writing, informational writing, and text, all of that can really happen and come to life in a learning garden.
And, Jeanne, we can see from the images we've been showing everybody that there are some really wide spaces in a lot of these situations. What about for schools that are in very, very heavily built up urban or suburban environments where maybe there isn't as much green space? How about that?
Yeah, so we scale it down, and we just built or helped enhance a garden here in the Washington D.C. area, and so what we try to do is fit it into the space we have, so it can be anywhere from some planters and then some functional elements for teachers. So we'll put up a whiteboard, we'll do a little bit of seating, and we'll just scale it down to fit that space. But learning can take place anywhere.
Yeah, Kringle, who's watching, actually, he's adding his comment. He says, you can even use scavenger hunts and inexpensive baubles with learning gardens in more complex educational curriculums. In terms of being able to scale this up so that it isn't just for elementary and middle schoolers, getting into high school and even beyond, how do you see this kind of project actually being able to be a boon not only for students but also for teachers?
Yeah, so we focus in elementary, but we also see across the country's high schools with learning gardens. They often do much more vegetable production, so greenhouses, and learning much more about agriculture and things like that can supplement some of the elementary school gardens. But our focus really is on elementary and getting those just early foundations and concepts solid with kids. So science, for example, oftentimes science isn't focused on until 4th and 5th grade, but we weave science into the language arts curriculum, we weave it into the math curriculum. So kids build that early foundation and are engaged in science from the youngest ages so they can carry it through to high school.
And Jeanne, final question for you. You know, there might be some teachers watching who think, you know what, this would be fantastic in our school. What advice would you give them to go about trying to secure the kind of funding that you mentioned?
Sure. So we are growing. We are in 2 regions of the United States now. We operate in Texas and the Mid-Atlantic, and we're growing. So look for our growth and look to see if there are opportunities to work with Real School Gardens. But if not, I do think it's making sure that you get teachers engaged and the principal engaged and on board with the vision that this is not just a garden, this is an academic endeavor and a learning space for schools. So that space can become a resource that's just as important as the library or the media center to the academic learning in the school. But you have to get that vision established up front.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Jeanne, for joining us today. And we will certainly be in touch and see how you guys progress in different schools as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
And for more information on Real School Gardens, you can check out the links in our resource file below. And stick around, guys. More HuffPost Live coming up next.